Network since about 1999. It was then the Fatherhood Project of New Haven, or the Fatherhood Program of New Haven. We became involved in looking at a different model that would serve men more broadly across a variety of needs without having to mount a program in the city. See that non-custodial low-income fathers became a major part of the mainstream, particularly a part of the life in the community that served their children as well as the mothers of those children. In front of non-custodial low-income fathers, and indeed fathers in general, is how do you manage life in a responsible way in an economy that is worsening by the day? How do you inspire people to take charge of their lives and be and to contribute to their community if the very means of production are disappearing? How do you indeed help men recover when they have made a mistake, paid their dues, returned home, and want to be a part of a vibrant and developing community? And those are the challenges that we try to address in this program, albeit that they're more difficult to do these days than it was when we started. But more importantly, the question is, in an environment that is puritanical and faith-based, how do you actually evidence the presence of forgiveness in the lives of men who have made a mistake, have paid their dues, and want to make a contribution to both their children and their community? So those challenges confront us in our work. We're doing all that we can to mount a powerful a program that is multidimensional, inspirational, inclusive, and generates results at the end of the day. And so to that end, our service is to mothers and fathers in the presence of and for the benefit of their children.
My name is Dr. Derek Gordon. I am an assistant clinical professor here at the Consultation Center at Yale University School of Medicine. My involvement with the Male Involvement Network has to do with the kind of helping them think about research and evaluation of the Male Involvement Network and making sure that we are documenting what it is that we do in the Male Involvement Network. I came to the Male Involvement Network because of my interest that grew out of my work in family violence. One of the things that I at the time was doing was engaging in groups for men who've been arrested for battering. And we would come across the idea of fatherhood through these groups, and it became one of those things that helped to motivate the men to kind of think and examine their behaviors. And out of that information, out of that experience, I decided that I wanted to understand a little bit more about how we can help use things like this to help these men do better for their children, do better for their families, and do better for their community. And I remain engaged because of my commitment to help support men, especially men of color and low-income men, be positive assets in their community. So that's why I'm here, that's why I remain here, and I think that definitely has kind of helped springboard me into kind of thinking about men and men being healthy just in general.
My name is Ken Harris, and I'm the Care Coordinator Data Manager for the New Haven Healthy Start program at the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. And I've been part of the network since it began here in New Haven over 10 years ago. I got involved with fatherhood work while working in Boston for the Boston Healthy Start Initiative, which is a maternal and child health initiative to reduce infant mortality. And so I have a huge commitment to children and families and women's health. And of course, we know part of the family includes fathers. And while in Boston, we initiated a fatherhood program in male involvement. And so it was natural to look for an opportunity to do the same thing here. So once arriving in New Haven and working with the people that I do, we formed the Male Involvement Network. And so my commitment remains in the capacity of New Haven Healthy Start with women's health, because many of these men are connected with the women that we serve and certainly living in the same communities, dealing with some of the same issues. And so it's our desire to link our efforts together to support these families.
How are you feeling about this overall work? What got you engaged in this? And why do you continue to push to do your work better? And how's that happening? I mean, how do you view the work that your agency's doing in this field?
Well, I mean, we started down this path over 10 years ago as a result of a staff member coming back from a conference in Washington where she met some of the pioneers in the fatherhood movement. And she said to me at the time that that one of her takeaways was that if an agency considered itself doing family work with low-income families, and that they hadn't engaged the non-custodial father, then they were not doing the full breadth of the work, and that they were colluding with a myth that low-income, non-custodial fathers of color were uninterested, disengaged from their children. And so we did our due diligence and found that that was, in fact, not the case. That there were many fathers who were engaged with their children in the best ways that they could be. And so we committed to trying to develop pathways for these dads to engage in healthy ways with their families. And we were very fortunate at that time to have other folk in our community like Amos Smith, Ken Harris, and Derek, Dr. Gordon, who had an equal interest and brought a tremendous amount of experience and skill to our effort to build a system that would support father engagement. And so we've been at that work for the last decade. We truly believe that any strategy to strengthen families has to include the support and engagement of the fathers of children. So while we have always held in very high regard and with a tremendous amount of respect the role that single moms have played in our social environment, it's become very clear to me over time that the either absence of fathers or their disconnect from their children has had devastating impact on some of our kids. Not necessarily all of our children, but some of our children. We work with adolescents in a variety of different ways at the agency, and I see it in our girls, and I see it in our young men, the yearning for that relationship, whether it grows out of a for young girls, their need for positive models that they can then use as a standard for their decisions in their relationships with males, or whether it's in these young boys as they try to define themselves in the world. So the work that we're doing is more important today than it was, I think, when we began. And I think Amos Smith spoke to some of the contextual reasons why that's the case. We have also learned that we have many men who, two things, are doing it right and don't get recognized for the role that they do play. And many men who, with the right supports, will step up to the challenges of fatherhood. And so this work is extraordinarily important as we look forward to a time when these supports won't be necessary. That these men will and moms will find a way to you know, put children first and find and embrace their roles as parents.
I'm Sherman Malone. I'm the clinical director at the New Haven Family Alliance. In the beginning, I was an observer of this. I remember when the guys in New Haven were meeting at Hattie's restaurant, and I saw myself as backup person at the agency to help out. I'm a longtime social worker, and my work is to help women and their children, to help women become healthy, strong people and take good care of their children. And I saw myself, as far as the fatherhood program and the Male Involvement Network, as a supporter of our people who were doing that work. And as it developed, I began to realize, partly because I've been around New Haven and I knew some of the fathers when they were actually 10 or 14, and I knew something of the trauma and trials they'd been through and the mistakes they had made and how inevitable those mistakes seemed because of the context. I knew their family, I knew their block. And then, little by little, I became more educated. New Haven Healthy Start and our partner focus, which we adopted fully in the Male Involvement Network, of preventing infant mortality, helping women when they're pregnant, seeing the supports, the studies that show that it's stress, it's social causes that we can affect, brought me really into the mission. But still something as a helper, because I saw our agency as helping broken men heal and be strong again and be better fathers. And it's really only the last few years when I've become part of the management team and when I believe that the effort, we call it changing the social expectations of fathers, has focused on men as fathers. And I've been close enough to see the change. Partly I've been close enough because some amazing bond of trust forms between the fathers in the program and the staff who help them. And that means that when there's a clinical issue that comes up, I can get to know them from a basis of trust that was unimaginable to me. And now I can really feel it. Not just that men should be good and not bad, but that there is nobody but the father who can do the things that they can do. And I see them graduate, and I see them become real assets in their community, real champions in their family. So I've come a long way, but I'm a real fatherhood person.
I'm Tamika Brabham. I'm the newest member of the Male Involvement Network management team. My role on the team encompasses the research and evaluation component, which tracks and documents the outcomes of the fatherhood work and the success that it will have on the family and the community. My fondest memories are of my grandfather and the influence he had on my life. And the role of the father is just as important as the role of the mother. And I look forward to the next 10 years of the Male Involvement Network and the impact that it will have on the lives of children.